Hi class, hi Miss Pierce. My name is Valerie Retzebek and I am presenting today for our African Humanities class. And my presentation today is going to be on Bojangles. So let's get started. So when I first started to do the initial research for this presentation, I was drawn to Sammy Davis Jr. and his version of the song Mr. Bojangles. Sammy Davis gave this song more of a jazzy Broadway feel. He used a lot of slower words and a lot of dancing during his performance, and he really enjoyed this song. However, as I started to research more, I found that this song was actually written by a man by the name of Jerry Jeff Walker, and then the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band is actually the one that made the song famous. And Jerry Jeff Walker had actually written this song based on an encounter he had in a New Orleans jail with a homeless man that had given the name Bojangles. And he had kind of told a sad story and it had darkened the mood. So to lighten the mood, he had danced for them. So that's really how the song was written, even though that had led me to learn about Bill Bojangles Robinson. And a lot of people think indirectly that that song was written about him, or he indirectly influenced that song. So let's learn a little bit about Bill Bojangles Robinson. Bill was born in 1878 in Richmond, Virginia, and his parents had died when he was about 6 or 7 years old. And Bill was raised by his grandmother, but he lived on the streets a lot, or kind of was raised on the streets. And Bill was actually born, his birth name was Luther Robinson, but he didn't like that name. He liked his little brother's name, Bill, so he kind of bullied him with his fist. Oh, I apologize. into giving him his name. So Luther and Bill had switched names. So Bill had grown up on the streets. He learned to dance. He would dance for pennies. He would work in the markets. And so he had gotten the nickname Bojanglers, which comes from the slang term jangler or quarrelsome, mischief. And then as he grew up on the streets, he learned to dance. And they also say that Bojangles had created the expression everything is copacetic, so everything is fine, and we'll come back to that copacetic later. So let's start with his career, and then we're going to get into the art routine, the dance routine that I'm going to show you here. So he began dancing at an early age. He by the time he was 12, he had already started touring. He had dropped out of school in the first grade, so he never learned to read or write. When he was about 19 years old, he did join the armed forces in the Spanish-American War. And then in 1900, actually, the turn of the century, he arrived in New York City. So when he arrived in New York City, he was about 22 years old, and he began dancing and had a performing show of tap dance in the theaters and in the nightclubs. He then partnered with a man by the name of George Cooper, who was a comedian, and Bojangles Bill would perform the tap dancing routine. And at that time, on the stage in New York, there was a two-colored rule, which meant they had to have two men of color on stage and that no man could have a solo. And when he was 36 years old, Robinson and Cooper had ended their partnership, and he had decided he was going to break that barrier, and he did. He became the first solo African American to perform on stage in New York. So Bill then became a star on Blackbirds of 1928, and then later he did perform in the Hot Mikado. Bill then did several films with Shirley Temple. Sorry. He did several films with Shirley Temple, and this is going to be the piece that I want to show you.
Now you just watch. I went to the market to get some beef, and the beef so tough, and I couldn't get none. I paid $5 for a great big hog, and the hog so fat, and I couldn't get
So, wasn't that entertaining and wonderful? So with that, that was the movie called The Little Colonel, and Bill and Shirley smashed it at the box office. However, with this, we all know who Shirley Temple is and the fame that she received. So with this, Robinson kind of didn't get any headings or press coverage for the film. However, he did get a lot of reviews and accolades for his performances. With this, Robinson and Temple did make history in Hollywood. They were the first multicultural dance partners to hit the stage. So during this performance or this filming, Bill was 57 years old and Shirley Temple was around 7. And they would make Bill look older by putting like powdered sugar in his hair, and I guess that was just for the role. For him, when he went to Hollywood, he made 4 films with her, but he had always, on his stage performances, he was able to wear a top hat and tails, and then in the movies, he had always gotten parts of the oppressed. So he either had to look like a butler or a barn hand, and a lot of times his speaking parts were made to make him appear as a lower class. Also in this film and others that they did together, the closest that Bill and Shirley got was just the handhold, wherein with many of her other co-stars that were white males, she was often hugging or in much closer relationship with them. During the filmings of these movies, Temple had said in some articles that she often, as a child, didn't realize how society was at this time, and that she would ask Bill where he was staying, where she would be staying in the cottage and he would be staying in the house above the carriage. And it wasn't until later in life that she realized what that meant. So as you saw, Robinson's dance style is just enjoyable. He's exuberant. He shows so much joy on his face, and just that he loves what he's doing. His tap sounds are in sync with music, and he really changed tap dance. He has clear sounds. He has amazing musicality. He was a wonderful entertainer. And not only an entertainer was he, but he loved to help people. He had performed in over 3,000 charity events, and even during the time of depression, of the Great Depression, he would help people by paying their rent, by providing them food. He knew how society was, and he knew how racism was, but he was not going to let anybody do him any injustice, and he was going to stand up for himself. So in 1943, he then got the lead role in Stormy Weather and was able to perform in the dress in the way that he wanted to. In Stormy Weather, 1943, was an all-black cast. And Bill couldn't live without dancing, so even at the age of 68, he was still wanting to dance, and he made his last tour, dance tour then. And then in 1949, he suffered a heart attack, and at the age of 71, he died on 11/25/1948. So his funeral was one of the largest at the time in New York City. He had over 1 million people of all races lining the street to honor him. And we had talked about the word copacetic. So they do say that he coined that expression. And so the Copacetics was created, which was a tap and musical club that was created just days after his death to remember him. But also this Copacetics is still going today, and it educates dancers on this unique dance style for tap. And then in 1989, the U.S. House and Senate confirmed May 25th, which is the Bojangles Robinson's birthday, as National Tap Dance Day. So every year, May 25th, we can remember Bill Bojangles Robinson. The American Tap Dance Foundation then inducted Robinson into the Tap Dance Hall of Fame in 2002. So one of my favorite things that I've learned, or that I think about, is that he has been called the greatest tap dancer ever, and my favorite is the grandfather of tap. He has changed and was the pioneer for tap dance, and many people like Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, Gregory Hines, Sammy Davis Jr., they all down, and their tap wouldn't have been the way it was without him. So I was really excited to have learned what I have about Bill Bojangles. I grew up taking tap class, and it's really helped kind of spark my interest again into tap. So thank you for joining me for this presentation. I hope you learned a little bit about Bill Bojangles Robinson and enjoyed the performance as much as I did. Thank you.